The bright morning sun shone through the windows of the United Nations headquarters in Geneva as Secretary General Paul Wilson adjusted his tie nervously. Today would change human history forever. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally received confirmation they were not alone. Dr. Alan Wright sat in the third row, his eyes fixed on the empty podium. As lead scientist at the SETI Institute, he had been the first to decode the alien transmission 3 months ago. Now, after weeks of communication, the visitors had arrived. "They're calling themselves the Galactic Council," whispered Dr. Catherine Miller, Alan's colleague. "Sounds pompous if you ask me." Alan nodded absently, his attention caught by a commotion at the main doors. The room fell silent as they entered. 3 tall, slender beings with iridescent blue skin and large almond-shaped eyes. Their movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, as they approached the stage. The central figure stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Syntheri race, representing the Galactic Council of Sentient Species." Its voice was melodic, translated through a small device at its throat. "We bring greetings and the hand of friendship to Earth." Applause erupted through the hall. Humanity's first contact was peaceful. There would be no war of the worlds, no invasion, just the beginning of a new era of interstellar cooperation. Or so they thought. 3 weeks later, Major Lisa Dawson sat in her Pentagon office, reviewing satellite footage. The Council had established embassies in 12 major cities across Earth, and public opinion was overwhelmingly positive. Trade agreements were being negotiated, cultural exchanges planned. But something didn't feel right. "Major, you wanted to see this." Lieutenant John Foster placed a tablet on her desk. Unusual energy readings from the Council embassy in Washington. Lisa studied the data, her brow furrowing. "These spikes occur every night at exactly 3:17 am. What are they doing when everyone's asleep?" "Maybe alien nap time," John suggested with a smile that quickly faded when Lisa didn't return it. "Get me everything on Ambassador Krell's movements for the past week," she said, reaching for her secure phone. "And connect me with Dr. Alan Wright at SETI." Across the country, Alan was working late in his lab, analyzing encrypted data streams he'd intercepted from the Council's communications. The translation matrix they'd provided worked for their spoken language, but these transmissions used different encryption. His computer beeped, signaling the completion of his decryption algorithm. Alan leaned forward, eyes widening as he read. Phase 1 complete. Human leadership structure mapped. Military capabilities assessed. Vulnerabilities identified. Harvesting sites selected. Awaiting authorization for Phase 2. His phone rang, startling him. Dr. Wright speaking. "This is Major Lisa Dawson, United States Space Force Intelligence. We need to talk about our visitors." Alan glanced back at his screen. "Major, I think the Council isn't being honest with us." "That's putting it mildly," Lisa replied. 4 scientists from the Lunar Observatory disappeared yesterday after reporting unusual activity around the Council ships. "Meet me tomorrow, 800 hours. The coffee shop on Constitution Avenue." "Come alone," Alan said, already downloading the decrypted files onto a secure drive. Outside Washington, D.C., Ambassador Krell stood on the balcony of the newly constructed Council embassy, gazing at the city lights. Beside him, his aide spoke softly. "The humans suspect nothing. They are primitive and trusting," Krell replied. "Their technology is rudimentary, but their planet is rich in resources. The Council has decided Earth will be most valuable as a harvesting world. And the inhabitants." Krell's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Labor is always needed in the outer colonies. Those who survive the processing will serve the Council well." Behind them, a cleaning staff member named Ben Harris quietly backed away from the door, his heart pounding. No one noticed as he slipped out of the building, clutching his phone with trembling hands. The invasion had already begun. 3 months after the arrival of the Galactic Council, Earth still celebrated its new alien allies. Trade deals were signed. Technology was shared. Council medical advances had already cured 2 previously fatal human diseases. Only a small group knew the truth. They're setting up processing centers, Lisa Dawson said, spreading satellite photos across the table in the abandoned warehouse that served as their meeting place. These buildings in Nevada, Siberia, and the Australian outback all showed the same energy patterns. Alan Wright nodded grimly. My decryption program has translated more of their internal communications. They're cataloging Earth's resources, minerals, water, organic compounds. Then Harris, the janitor who had overheard the aliens at the embassy, spoke up. I've been assigned to clean their new facility in Virginia. They're bringing in huge machines through the basement levels. The small resistance group had grown to include 12 people, scientists, military personnel, and ordinary citizens who had stumbled upon the truth. They worked in secret, gathering evidence while the world embraced the council. We need to warn people, said Dr. Karen Wells, an atmospheric scientist. The council has been releasing particles into the upper atmosphere. I believe they're testing our environmental tolerances. Lisa shook her head. We've tried. The UN dismissed our evidence as forgeries. 3 reporters who ran stories questioning the council have been discredited or have disappeared. The meeting was interrupted by the sound of emergency alerts from everyone's phones. The group gathered around a small television in the corner. On screen, Ambassador Krell stood at the UN podium, his blue skin gleaming under the lights. It is with deep regret that I must inform humanity of a deception. We came in peace, but discovered your governments were planning to steal our technology for weapons development. Gasps echoed through the UN chamber as Krell continued. For the safety of the galaxy, the Council must temporarily assume control of Earth to prevent this threat. The broadcast cut to live footage of enormous ships descending over major cities worldwide. Smaller craft deployed what looked like silver towers at strategic points. Those are pulse generators, Ellen whispered. My God, they're going to. The TV went dead. Every electronic device in the room shut down simultaneously. Through the warehouse windows, they watched as the city lights went dark. EMP, Lisa said. They've just disabled everything with an electronic circuit. Outside, people began to panic as vehicles stopped working and communications failed. In the distance, council ships deployed troops. Tall, armored figures moving with mechanical precision. Ben peered through binoculars. They're rounding people up, loading them onto transport vehicles. Over the next 3 days, the resistance group watched helplessly as the Council's true plan unfolded. Earth's military forces, disabled by the technology blackout, were quickly overwhelmed. Council forces established control zones in every major population center. On the 4th day, Krell appeared on emergency broadcast systems that mysteriously functioned despite the EMP. Citizens of Earth, the transition to Council administration is proceeding smoothly. Report to your nearest processing center for identification and work assignment. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. The Council brings order and purpose to all worlds under its care. The broadcast showed smiling humans receiving identification chips and boarding transports to new opportunity zones. What the broadcast didn't show were the massive mining operations already beginning in remote areas, the processing plants where humans were evaluated for labor potential, or the ships leaving Earth loaded with resources. They're not just taking our resources, Alan said, examining a stolen council tablet. They're taking us too. These transport manifests show thousands of people being shipped to mining colonies on distant planets. Lisa looked at their small group, determination in her eyes. Then we fight back. We find their weakness, and we make them regret ever finding Earth. The resistance had begun. 5 years passed under Council rule. Earth's once green landscapes were now scared with massive mining operations. The human population had been reduced by nearly 40%, some shipped to off-world labor colonies, others lost to processing accidents or simple starvation. But in the shadows, resistance grew. Colonel Frank Martinez surveyed the hidden camp nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, What had begun as Lisa Dawson's small group of 12 had grown into a network of thousands. They lived underground, in caves and abandoned mines the Council's scanners couldn't penetrate. "Status report," Martinez said as he entered the command center, a repurposed mining office reinforced with scavenged metal. Lisa, now his second in command, looked up from her maps. "The raid on the Council supply depot in Colorado was successful. We captured weapons, food, and medical supplies." "Any casualties?" "2 wounded, none killed. Sam's team is getting better at disabling the Council's security drones." Martinez nodded, allowing himself a rare smile. "And Wright's project?" "See for yourself," Lisa said, leading him deeper into the complex. Dr. Alan Wright hadn't seen daylight in 3 months. His laboratory was crowded with salvaged Council technology and his own inventions. When Martinez entered, Alan was testing a rifle-like device, aiming it at a piece of Council armor suspended from the ceiling. "Watch this," Alan said, firing the weapon. A pulse of greenish light struck the armor, which immediately began to deteriorate, flaking away like ash. "It works on their personal protection now?" Martinez asked, impressed. Alan nodded enthusiastically. "I've isolated the radiation frequency that disrupts their molecular bonding technology. Their ships, their weapons, their armor, it all uses the same basic principle." "How many of these can you make?" "With the materials from the Colorado raid, at least 50. Maybe more if Susan can help." Susan Collins had been a Navy engineer before the invasion. Now she led the Resistance's technology division, focusing on adapting Council tech for human use. Her latest achievement was a stealth field that could hide small groups from Council scanners. In another section of the complex, she was teaching new recruits how to use the technology. "The field only lasts 40 minutes before needing to recharge," she explained to the group. "Time your missions accordingly." Among her students was Ben Harris, the former janitor now serving as one of their most valuable spies. He had a natural ability to blend in, which allowed him to infiltrate Council work crews. "Their processing center in the old Atlanta ruins is shipping people out tomorrow," Ben reported. 300 humans, mostly scientists and engineers. "They're bound for the mining colony in the Proxima system." Martinez's face hardened. The Council had been systematically removing Earth's brightest minds, either shipping them off-world or simply eliminating them. It was part of their standard procedure, prevent technological advancement that might threaten their control. "We hit it tonight," he decided. "Susan's stealth tech, Alan's new weapons. We get those people out." The Council wasn't taking the Resistance lightly. After Martinez's team had destroyed a resource ship the previous month, they had responded by obliterating what remained of Chicago, a demonstration of power that killed thousands. But each Council atrocity only strengthened the Resistance. Survivors fled to the mountains, the deserts, the deep forests where Council patrols were thin. That evening, as the Resistance prepared for their raid, Alan made another breakthrough. He had captured a Council communication hub during the Colorado mission and finally managed to access their network. "They're vulnerable," he told Martinez, pointing to the data streaming across his screen. "Their resources are stretched thin across 17 subjugated worlds, and we're not the only ones fighting back." Martinez studied the information, hope rising for the first time in years. "Can you contact these other Resistance movements?" Alan grinned. "I already have. And they're eager to coordinate." The coming darkness no longer seemed so absolute. The raid on the Atlanta Processing Center marked a turning point. Using Alan's radiation weapons and Susan's stealth technology, Martinez's team freed 300 captives and destroyed the facility with minimal casualties. Similar strikes occurred simultaneously across North America and Europe. The Council was caught off guard. For the first time, their forces were in retreat. "They're calling for reinforcements," Alan announced, monitoring Council communications from their mountain headquarters. Emergency transmissions to the Central Authority. They didn't expect organized resistance on this scale. Lisa studied the holographic map showing resistance cells across the globe. How long until their backup arrives? Based on these coordinates, at least 3 weeks. Their nearest major fleet is suppressing a rebellion in the Orient sector. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. Then we have a window. Time to move to Phase 2. Phase 2 had been Susan Collins' idea, something so audacious that even Martinez had initially dismissed it. But now, looking at the Council ship they had captured in the Atlanta raid, it seemed possible. It's not just a transport vessel, Susan explained, leading the group through the alien craft hidden in an abandoned mine shaft. It has faster-than-light capabilities. I've been studying their propulsion systems for years. We can make this work. Her team had been modifying the ship for weeks, replacing Council control systems with human interfaces where possible, bypassing them where not. They named it Vengeance. The plan is simple, Martinez told his command staff. While our ground forces keep hitting Council installations, drawing their attention, Lisa will lead a team to infiltrate their orbital command platform. Lisa pointed to the schematics they'd pieced together from surveillance and captured data. We believe the platform controls the automated defense systems preventing any unauthorized launches from Earth, if we can disable it, even temporarily. Then Vengeance can break atmosphere. Susan finished. We'll head for their nearest outpost. A supply station orbiting Proxima Centauri b. Intelligence suggests that's where many Earth captives are being held before final distribution to mining colonies. The risk was enormous. If they failed, the Council would certainly escalate their reprisals against Earth's population. But staying on the defensive meant slow extinction. As preparations continued, Alan made another critical discovery. In a secured section of the Council's network, he found biological research files. They're developing a pathogen, he told Martinez privately, his face pale. Something that targets human DNA specifically. I think they're planning to exterminate us once they've finished stripping the planet. Martinez studied the data, his expression grim. Can you develop a countermeasure? Better, Alan replied. I can reverse engineer it to target Centauri physiology instead. But I need samples, more than we have here. The orbital platform would have what you need, Lisa suggested. Their biological research section is adjacent to the control center. The plan solidified. A 3-pronged attack. Ground forces would launch coordinated strikes worldwide, creating maximum disruption. Lisa's team would infiltrate the orbital platform to disable defenses and secure biological samples. Susan would pilot Vengeance beyond Earth's atmosphere, ready to make the jump to Proxima Centauri. Against all odds, the initial stages succeeded. Resistance cells across 6 continents hit Council targets simultaneously. Communication hubs, processing centers, mining operations, all came under attack. The Council forces, already stretched thin, couldn't respond effectively. Using a captured shuttle and Council identification codes, Lisa's team docked with the orbital platform. Disguised as human collaborators bringing reports, they gained access to the central sections. Security is lighter than expected, Lisa whispered into her communicator as they moved through the corridors. They never imagined we could reach them here. On Earth, Susan prepared Vengeance for launch, her crew of 12 former pilots and engineers tense but ready. Ground teams report successful disruption of Council response capabilities, Martinez told her via secure channel. Lisa's team has reached the defense control systems. You'll have your window in approximately 20 minutes. Susan looked at her crew, determination in her eyes. Humanity's counterattack is about to go interstellar. Lisa's team moved through the orbital platform with practiced precision. Years of fighting Council forces had taught them to move silently, to blend into shadows. Their stolen Council uniforms and identification chips had gotten them through the initial security checkpoints, but wouldn't fool anyone who looked too closely. Defense Control Center is 2 levels up, whispered Ryan Peters, a former NASA engineer who had memorized the station schematics. Biological Research Lab is adjacent, just as our intelligence indicated. Lisa nodded, checking her radiation pistol. Alan's technology had been miniaturized, making the weapons more portable, but no less effective against Council technology and physiology. Team 1 with me to defense controls. Team 2, secure those biological samples Dr. Wright needs. As they approached the control center, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. They've discovered the attacks on the ground, Ryan said, checking his communicator. Council forces are being recalled to defend their primary installations. Lisa made a split-second decision. We move now. No more stealth. Her team charged the control center, radiation weapons firing. The Council technicians inside barely had time to react before their control panels began disintegrating under the specialized radiation. Within minutes, Lisa's team had control of the station's defense systems. Orbital weapons grid shutting down. Lisa reported into her secure communicator. Susan, you have your window. Launch now. 400 miles below, Susan Collins felt vengeance rumble to life. The captured Council ship had been extensively modified, its alien controls adapted for human use where possible. As the ship rose from its hidden mountain hangar, Susan held her breath, watching the radar for signs of Council interceptors. None came. Lisa's team had succeeded. Breaking atmosphere in 30 seconds, Susan announced to her crew, "Stand by for FTL jump once we clear the orbital path." On the main view screen, Earth fell away beneath them, a blue and brown sphere scared by Council mining operations. For most of Susan's crew, it was their first view of their home planet from space, a bittersweet moment of wonder and grief. FTL systems engage, reported Eric Daniels, Susan's navigation officer. Course set for Proxima Centauri, the jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines of light as Vengeance made the first human-controlled faster-than-light jump in history. Meanwhile, in the orbital platform's biological research lab, Lisa's second team secured the samples Alan needed. Council scientists were captured alive. They would be valuable sources of information. Lab secured, reported Olivia Ward, the team leader. We found something else, Major. Records of all off-world human transports. Where they were sent, how many. Lisa felt her heart race. Download everything. That information could save thousands of lives. As her teams worked to extract from the platform, Council reinforcements began arriving. The battle for the orbital station grew intense, with Lisa's forces using their radiation weapons to devastating effect against Council technology. "Major, we need to evacuate now," Ryan urged as enemy fire intensified. "We've accomplished our objectives." Lisa nodded, ordering her teams to fall back to their shuttle. As they retreated, she activated the final part of their plan. A radiation bomb built to Alan's specifications, placed at the heart of the station's power core. The shuttle undocked as the first explosions began rippling through the platform. From a safe distance, Lisa watched the Council's orbital headquarters disintegrate, its fragments burning up in Earth's atmosphere like artificial meteors. 4 light-years away, Vengeance emerged from FTL near Proxima Centauri. The Council outpost orbiting the planet was visible immediately, a massive structure processing resources and slaves for transport throughout Council space. Multiple human life signs detected, Eric reported, scanning the facility. Thousands of them. Susan nodded grimly. "Begin approach. Transmit the Council identification codes we captured." The station accepted their codes without question. They had no reason to suspect a Council transport ship would be piloted by humans intent on liberation. As Vengeance docked with the processing station, Susan addressed her crew one final time before the assault began. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves now. We're fighting for every human who's been taken from Earth. Today, humanity's revenge goes beyond our solar system." Susan's team moved through the Proxima Centauri processing station with ruthless efficiency. Their radiation weapons cut through Council security forces, whose armor dissolved on contact with the specialized energy beams. Within hours, they had secured the central control hub and begun releasing human captives from their holding cells. "There are over 5,000 of us here," said Grace Porter, a physicist who had been abducted from London 2 years earlier. They'd been using us to process minerals from the mining operations on the planet below. Susan nodded grimly. Can any of you help operate Council technology? We need to access their communication systems. Several former scientists and engineers stepped forward. With their help, Susan's team hacked into the Council's secure network, downloading star charts, ship movements, and most importantly, the locations of other human processing centers. There's another species being held here, reported Eric, Susan's navigation officer. Non-human, but definitely not Council either. They're in the lower detention blocks. Susan and a small team went to investigate. In the lowest level of the station, they found hundreds of reptilian beings locked in cramped cells. When the doors opened, the aliens regarded the humans with caution. "We are Dravani," said one who stepped forward, its scaled skin shifting colors from red to purple. "The Council enslaved our world 15 solar cycles ago. Are you their new enforcers?" "No," Susan replied. "We're humans, from Earth. The Council invaded our planet too. We're fighting back, and we've taken control of this station." The Dravani leader studied her, then performed what appeared to be a respectful bow. "Then we are allies against a common enemy. The Dravani will fight alongside humans." Back on Earth, the Resistance had entered a new phase. With the orbital defense platform destroyed, Martinez coordinated a global offensive against Council ground forces. Alan's radiation weapons had been distributed to resistance cells worldwide, turning the tide of many battles. In his laboratory, Alan worked day and night on the biological samples Lisa's team had recovered from the orbital platform. The Council's planned pathogen targeting human DNA had been completely reverse-engineered. "It's ready," he told Martinez, holding up a container of pale blue liquid. "A bioweapon specifically designed to attack synthetic physiology. It will affect no other species, not humans, not even other Council races." Martinez studied the container. "And you're certain it works?" "We tested it on tissue samples from captured Council officers. It's lethal to them within minutes and spreads through air and water. One canister could infect an entire city." The colonel nodded slowly. "We'll use it only if necessary. But having it gives us leverage." 3 weeks later, Susan's ship returned to Earth orbit, accompanied by 2 additional vessels. Captured Council transports filled with liberated humans and Dravani allies. They'd brought with them Council technology, weapons, and most importantly, hope. A secure communication channel opened between Vengeance and the Resistance headquarters. "Colonel, you're not going to believe what we found," Susan said, her face appearing on the command center's main screen. The Proxima station was just one of dozens. There are at least 15 other species being subjugated by the Council. We've made contact with resistance movements on 7 different worlds. Martinez leaned forward. "Can they help us?" "They already are. The Dravani have provided us with advanced shield technology that can block Council sensors. They've also pledged warriors to our cause." Lisa, standing beside Martinez, smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then we're no longer alone in this fight." "Not even close," Susan replied. "The Council's empire is built on enslaved worlds, and those worlds are ready to rebel. They just needed to know it was possible." The next day, a Council communication drone landed outside the remains of New York City. It projected a hologram of Ambassador Krell, his blue skin now pale with age or stress. "People of Earth," the Zintheri announced, "your recent acts of terrorism cannot be tolerated. The Galactic Council has officially declared your species in a state of insurrection. All human collaborators will be evacuated, and your planet will be subject to cleansing protocols." Martinez watched the message with his command staff, his expression unchanged. "They're planning something big," Lisa observed. "So are we," Martinez replied. He turned to Alan. "How soon can your bioweapon be deployed against the Zintheri homeworld?" Alan met his gaze steadily. "Whenever you give the order." The final phase of Earth's revenge was about to begin. The Council fleet arrived in massive numbers, thousands of ships darkening Earth's orbit. Their message was clear: surrender or face extinction. But humanity had spent 8 years preparing for this moment. All resistance cells report ready, Lisa announced in the war room of their mountain headquarters. Allied ships are in position. Martinez nodded, his face solemn. What had begun as a small band of 12 desperate people had grown into a force spanning multiple star systems. The alliance included 7 formerly subjugated species, all united by their hatred of the Council. "Begin Operation Final Strike," he ordered. Across Earth, hidden weapon platforms activated simultaneously, targeting Council ships with Allen's radiation beams. The massive alien vessels began disintegrating in orbit, their molecular bonds dissolving under the specialized radiation. Susan Collins led the space assault, commanding a fleet of 30 captured and modified Council vessels. Her flagship, the original Vengeance, spearheaded the attack on the Council command ship. "Enemy shields failing," reported Eric from the tactical station. "Their technology still has no defense against our radiation weapons." Susan nodded. "All ships, focus fire on their engines. We want that vessel disabled, not destroyed." The Council command ship, 10 times larger than any other vessel in orbit, soon drifted powerless. Susan's boarding teams, composed of humans and Dravani warriors, breached the hull and fought their way to the bridge. Meanwhile, Alan Wright was executing the most critical part of the plan. 3 small, stealthy ships approached the Zinthari homeworld, carrying his bioweapon. The Zinthari had never fortified their own planet, believing no species would dare attack the heart of the Council. They were wrong. Deployment successful, Alan reported via long-range communication. "The pathogen is entering their atmosphere now." On the Zinthari world, the bioweapon spread rapidly through air and water systems. Within hours, reports of mass casualties began flooding Council communication channels. The Zinthari, architects of the Council's oppression for centuries, were experiencing firsthand the biological warfare they had planned to use on humanity. Back in Earth orbit, Susan's forces secured the Council command ship. In its databases, they found the coordinates for Zenthraxis, the artificial world that served as the Council's central headquarters. "All Council leadership gathers there," explained Krell, now a prisoner. The once proud ambassador looked broken, his blue skin pale and mottled. "You cannot hope to reach it. The defenses are impenetrable." Lisa smiled coldly. "Nothing is impenetrable. You taught us that when you invaded Earth." The combined fleet of human and allied ships jumped to the coordinates. Zenthraxis loomed before them, an artificial ring world encircling a small star, housing the Council's governing bodies and elite citizens. Martinez led the ground assault personally, commanding a mixed force of humans and aliens who had all suffered under Council rule. They fought their way through the ornate halls of the Council chambers, their radiation weapons making short work of the defenders. In the central chamber, they found the Council Supreme, representatives of the 12 founding species who had built their prosperity on the suffering of countless worlds. "You have lost," Martinez told them simply. "Earth's revenge is complete." The terms of surrender were non-negotiable. The Council would be dissolved. All enslaved worlds would be freed. A new galactic alliance would form, based on mutual respect and cooperation rather than domination. As news of the Council's fall spread across the galaxy, celebrations erupted on dozens of worlds. Ships returned to Earth, carrying humans who had been taken as slaves years before. Families reunited. Healing began. 1 month later, the leaders of Earth's resistance stood on a platform in the rebuilt United Nations Plaza in Geneva, where Ambassador Krell had first addressed humanity 9 years earlier. "We won our freedom through blood and sacrifice," Martinez told the assembled crowd. "Now we must build a better future than the one the Council envisioned, not just for humanity, but for all sentient species." Susan looked out at the faces below. Humans standing alongside Dravani and other alien allies. We were chosen as victims because the Council thought us weak. They learned too late that threatening humanity's existence was their greatest mistake. Lisa added, Earth's revenge is complete, but our journey as a galactic species is just beginning.